This is the largest OLED TV that Samsung sells for 2026. It's the 83-inch S90H. It uses a WOLED panel from LG Display. Now, you may be wondering, why would you buy a WOLED TV from Samsung rather than from LG themselves? One of the key reasons would be its matte surface coating, which is the glare-free coating. And it has its use in this sort of environment where it is very bright in a big room where light cannot be controlled in an adequate manner. Now I know some of you, including myself, will prefer a glossy coating because of the improved contrast and perceived depth that it brings. But for some people, it is more important for them to not see any reflections on screen because they cannot control the amount of light in the room. And this is where the glare-free coating on this Samsung 83-inch S90H comes into play. Let's do a deep dive into the WOLED panel on this 83-inch model. It uses a 3-stack WOLED panel, as you can see from the spectral power distribution. And also, when we analyze the BT 2020 coverage, it reaches around 77%, which is less than the 83 or 84% that a 4-stack WOLED panel is capable of. In terms of HDR peak brightness, this TV, I measured it to be capable of hitting above 1500 nits on a 10% window at the 65 white point in HDR filmmaker mode, and around 250 nits full fill. And DCI-P3 color gamut coverage is above 99%, and obviously I've talked about BT 2020 earlier. But crucially for Samsung OLED TVs, the color space setting is very important because you can either select DCI-P3 or BT 2020. So as a test, I went into the color space setting. The default is auto, and the color space auto setting actually defaults to P3 on this S90H, which is a different situation to what happens on the flagship S99H, or in the USA, it's called the S95H. Because on that TV, it actually defaults to BT 2020, which gives it a coverage of above 90% because of the QD OLED panel. But on this WOLED panel, regardless of whether you set it to DCI-P3 or BT 2020, it will never exceed 78% in terms of the BT 2020 coverage. And this is just a fundamental attribute of a 3-stack or older WOLED panel. Also, one thing that I normally check for when toggling between these two settings is the amount of posterization that is introduced by either setting. And surprisingly, on this Samsung S90H, P3 actually tracked more accurately, and also it actually did not exhibit as much posterization as in BT 2020 in several scenes. So this is certainly the correct move for Samsung to set the color space setting to default to auto, tracking P3 out of the box. One very big improvement that I've noted on Samsung's 2026 TVs is in terms of the 24p motion handling. And I displayed some of the more challenging scenes that have thrown up motion hiccups on previous Samsung TVs on this set, and it passed with flying colors when it comes to 24p playback. So even with picture clarity set to off, which is the default in filmmaker mode, this TV correctly applied 5.5 pull down to present 24p content smoothly without telecine judder. And even in this particularly challenging scene where there's a slow pinning shot in the dark, the TV did not exhibit any stuttering or hiccup, which is very good news for some of you out there who have been frustrated with 24p motion hiccups on previous Samsung televisions. But when it came to 50 Hz broadcast content, just like the flagship or high-end S99H, this TV exhibited some microstutter in some programs with mixed edits. So this is probably something that is a bit of a regression compared to last year. This is with picture clarity off. And hopefully Samsung can investigate and rectify this. I have to stress that it is not as obvious as I make it out to be because my eyes are very sensitive. And most of the other people I've asked to actually see whether there's any stuttering or not did not actually see it. So there you go. But because we are actually doing the testing and filming in such a bright room, I did not get the opportunity to test for near black chrominance overshoot or dark uniformity, or in fact, watch any low bitrate content from streaming. And talking about streaming, since the pandemic, some streaming providers, including Netflix, have throttled the bit rates of certain shows, especially in Europe, resulting in a softer picture with more compression artifacts. This is where a VPN comes in. Surfshark allows you to stream content from another country without needing you to be physically there, so you can watch Netflix at higher bit rates with better picture quality. You can also watch titles from another country, which may contain more titles for you to get your teeth into. There's 24/7 live customer support, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and if you go to surfshark.com/HDTV test and enter promo code HDTV test, you'll get 4 extra months free. So sign up today and give Surfshark a try. I'll leave a link in the YouTube description below. Thanks again for your support. Okay. Samsung OLEDs have been very good for gaming, and this is taking into account the instantaneous pixel response time of OLED as well. So for playing 60 frames per second games, this TV is capable of a very low input lag of 9.5 milliseconds, and this will drop to 5 milliseconds at 120 FPS. Now, some of you like to play 30 FPS games, but that will maybe introduce a bit more stutter or judder, and so you may like to use Samsung's Game Motion Plus feature, their motion interpolation, which is still active in game mode. Well, at level 1, the input lag increased to 13 milliseconds, but this is not as useful as it seems because the blur reduction and also the judder reduction setting needs to be set to 0 for this 13 milliseconds to occur. And if you go above 0, then it will go above 40 milliseconds in terms of the latency. So that is more representative of the amount of lag that you will get when engaging Game Motion Plus to achieve smoother gameplay for 30 FPS games. Some of you probably wouldn't mind, especially for cinematic games, for open world games. It is a trade-off between whether you want a smoother playback or you have to put up with a higher input lag. Coming back to the OLED panel, the screen uniformity is again one thing that will probably be of interest to many of you out there. So because this is a OLED, bright uniformity is very good with no dirty screen effect or banding on full-field gray slides. But on the sides, you can probably see some color tinting, and this is because of the viewing angles of OLED, where off-axis, the screen will take on different kinds of tint in different parts of the screen, either green or cyan, which may explain sometimes why some people are complaining that their OLED TVs look a bit greener when they watch it off-axis. So this is just a very quick first look video of this Samsung S90H, the 83-inch model. It is capable of a peak brightness of 1500 nits and also 250 nits full screen. If you are interested in Samsung's even higher tier S90H flagship QD OLED, you can watch my full review by clicking here.